This is an extract from the Leader podcast by the Evening Standard, hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for us on your podcast provider.
My fellow Americans, our First Lady and the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
His own daughter Ivanka introduced Donald Trump to the stage on the final night of a Republican National Convention that's often seemed like a family gathering. Donald Trump Jr. took the podium on the first night, so did his girlfriend Kimberly Guilfoyle. Eric Trump has spoken, so has Tiffany. The president's wife Melania, of course, made an address as First Lady. But if, as some have claimed, the takeover of the Republican Party is now complete, will that be what it takes to keep Donald Trump and family in their jobs? Our US correspondent David Gardner is with me. David, Mr. Trump spoke last night and you were listening. What did he say?
The Republican National Convention closed as it began with a speech from Mr. Trump. He's clearly decided to make this personal, mentioning Joe Biden's name 40 times during the 70-minute speech.
Joe Biden is not a savior. Joe Biden spent his entire career outsourcing their dreams. Joe Biden's agenda. Joe Biden and his party. Joe Biden wants to inflict a painful shutdown on the entire country.
That compares to last week's speech by Mr. Biden at the Democrat convention, where he mentioned Mr. Trump's name not once.
The current president has cloaked American darkness for much too long. Too much anger, too much fear, too much division.
The reason is clearly that Trump believes he can out-debate, out-attack, out-criticise Biden. He's gone for the throat of the Democrats, trying to paint an apocalyptic vision of the future under a Democrat president, violence in the streets, socialist agendas. He accused Mr. Biden of being a Trojan horse for socialism.
He is the destroyer of America's jobs, and if given the chance, he will be the destroyer of American greatness.
This is the kind of fear that Mr. Trump is trying to generate across the country. It's an old-fashioned tactic in America, and indeed in politics. But Mr. Trump is taking it to a new level, I think. He is using the unrest across the country, for which he has been criticised for in his handling of it. He's trying to use that to persuade Americans that it's going to get worse under the Democrats rather than worse under him.
So Joe Biden clearly getting a lot of name checks in Donald Trump's speech there, but not a single mention of the words coronavirus or COVID-19, David.
One subject that was notably absent during most of the convention was the subject most people in America and around the world are talking about, the coronavirus pandemic. He did refer to the China virus twice. He certainly didn't mention the 180,000 odd people in America who had died from the virus. This again would be because it's one of the main areas of criticism being levelled against him.
In recent months, our nation and the world has been hit by the once-in-a-century pandemic that China allowed to spread around the globe. They could have stopped it, but they allowed it to come out. We are grateful to be joined tonight by several of our incredible nurses and first responders. Please stand and accept our profound thanks and gratitude.
You could not ignore the fact that the Trump family were on stage without masks. Most of Mr. Trump's cabinet were in the front rows of the South Lawn of the White House without masks, and most of the nearly 2,000 people watching from chairs on the South Lawn were very close together. Most were not wearing masks, and there were a number of them elderly, some in their 80s. It wouldn't happen in the UK, that's for certain.
So we have another speech by Donald Trump, a long one this time, where his critics say that it's full of falsehoods, assertions made without evidence, such as claiming China spread coronavirus around the world. Do these addresses of his, though, make a difference? Has this convention been a success?
In terms of Mr. Trump's campaign, that remains to be seen. He needs to pick up the independent voters, the people that voted for him last time that may be swaying this time. It's a tough one. I mean, he is trying to scare them into voting for him. That's his tactic. I suspect that will be the tactic that he will follow in the next 10 weeks, as the campaign is undoubtedly going to get uglier and uglier. Mr. Trump's attacks are likely to get more and more blistering and more personal. I think we can guarantee that. There are going to be televised debates head-to-head between Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump. Those we can almost be certain will follow that similar tack.